I'm teaching this summer because I've never led wildlife before. But my good friend Bongo, who has been in our area for a while and who leads wildlife the whole time, will be the real brains and knowledge behind this seminar. But what is unique to what I get to do is actually just share a little bit about the fact that now I am the parent of a middle schooler. And as an area director in my area, you know, it's funny, when I came into our area, we did not have a wildlife ministry, and we were trying to get ministry started at a school district called Radnor. And we met a family who was really excited about Young Life and had just got a vision for their kids and for their town. And they began with the idea of like, look, here's what we have. We know these kids, we know these families, what can we do? And so we started with wildlife, and really we used wildlife at that time as kind of a means to an end, which was to start a high school club. And I think oftentimes that's how wildlife gets viewed, as a little bit of a means to an end. Like, we want a Young Life club happening here, let's start with wildlife and then let's hope it moves up. And that's really actually what we've discovered in our area, not what wildlife is about at all. Although the two can work together really well. We started in Radnor actually with that wildlife. It became a high school club, and then we realized like, no, we still have the opportunity for great, you know, ministry with kids in the middle school. We're kind of missing it, and so we kind of doubled back around. And that's actually when Chris had come on, started at Villanova, and became a leader. And it's been exciting to see through trial and error, a lot of error actually, of what we've done, how we've really developed a great opportunity to just reach a community. And that's actually why I believe, because of our wildlife ministry, that's why our Radnor club has been so powerfully reaching the whole community there. I'm not joking, we have a few families that have been instrumental in this, but we now have two of our best clubs are the wildlife and the high school club at Radnor. And we've actually planted a church in that town, a group bus, that has been kind of around the dynamic of how many families are being reached in Radnor. So it's been just exciting to see how God can move through families. Now that I am the parent of a middle schooler, I'm realizing how, it's right here, let me I'm realizing how much middle schoolers are little adults, and yet they're still very much kids, and their whole life, their social life has become like a teenage social life, and yet it's so wrapped up in what the parents can and will do, and the decisions the parents make, and all that stuff, that really what you guys get to do is work closely and intimately with parents. And so you're called to wildlife, yeah, you're absolutely called to go and meet as many middle school kids as you can and go deep into their lives. But really, you're going to be called, maybe even more than a lot of our high school leaders, to be in the lives of the families and the kids you meet in an intimate way. And that's actually an exciting good thing. We have been trying to get wildlife started in my school district, in the Conestoga TE school district, and it has been one of the most difficult things. And really, I think it rises and falls on the leadership of parents who are involved and are willing to kind of coordinate and make these things work. So Chris is going to go through some of the details of how they've made it work in Radnor, because we're still struggling in TE. And I'll say this, it really is just a matter of the basics of Young Life. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today are things that you should hear in any seminar about how to run a good Young Life club in any context. But Chris is going to kind of give you the perspective of what that looks like for wildlife. But I will just say this, we need people who care for and love and desperately want to, like Fess was talking about, be in a place, serve that place, and go after kids and families who are lost. And be intimately involved, showing up in the lives of those people over and over again. And I think some of our failings with wildlife have been around the figuring out the right program or the right field, you know, how to get the right momentum. And really, it's just the same, over and over again. It's the same. It's Young Life 101. It's showing up. It's showing up. It's going deep relation. It's living life on life with people. And when you do that with middle school kids, it involves their families. So that's where I wanted to begin. Let me pray for us, and then I'm going to introduce Chris a little bit here. God, thank you so much for this time. Thanks for these leaders in this room, and for the time and energy they put towards just being in the lives of the listeners. God, we thank you that you have entrusted to us the middle schools in our area, that we can go after kids who desperately need to know you, who are already facing a lot of the pressures of adolescence, who are already dealing with so many things that already are taking them to a deeper, darker place, a lonely place, a place of desperation. And God, we thank you that you call us to go deep into that world. And God, we ask that in this time, God, that you would help us to together learn how you are stepping into these schools. God, to learn your ways and to follow you. So in your name we pray. Amen. So Chris Bongo here came into WyldLife, really restarting Radnor Club, and in the process, just has done a phenomenal job of doing, I think, what are some of the key things that it's going to take to do WyldLife, which is communication, really good communication with adults in the area. Contact work, finding out creative and good ways to do contact work with middle schoolers when their schedules are kind of wrapped into what their parents are doing and things like that. They can't have transportation, all that stuff. And then I would say the last thing is just consistency, the ability to consistently do club and a version of campaigners, which Chris can explain, and really do that well. Figure out what it looks like to have a ministry team, which in for a high school club, we think of just our campaigners and our leaders. And then the adults are involved sort of as senders supporting it. But create a ministry team that is actually adults and then some of the kids that we know and all that stuff that are more serious about faith. So, Chris, you want to?
Sure. All right, so I have this. I'm an engineer. I go to Bongo, and my mind is very organized. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry for the handout.
I sat down and I said, that's just
yeah, it is.
You're rare.
I'm organized. No, let me start with what Joe said about organization and communication first. That has been crucial for us. Parent communication and communicating with other leaders, and in general, if you don't have someone on your team that is good at communicating, you have to work that. That is, I'll start there. Just by showing hands, how many of you here are currently leading a WyldLife club? So I know. Awesome. Cool. And I guess everybody else is sort of interested in jumping in or starting or something like that. Awesome. All right. So I don't plan on getting into all of this. Some of this is here for reference. You can take a moment to read over it. What I want to spend most of this time on is the 5 C's of Young Life. 5 C's of Young Life are also the 5 C's of WyldLife. It's the same thing. They look very different because middle schoolers are crazy energetic, they're loud and noisy, they're also much younger, and their brains are nowhere near as developed as a freshman in high school. And it is WyldLife is a ministry to parents and families as well as kids. So that's the basis of all of the differences here. The committee supports leaders. There's no major difference between Young Life and WyldLife. That's the same thing. So we're going to pass over that one. Contact work. I say here you have to be more careful. And what I mean by this is, in this day and age, I've been called out by dads and moms alike, not aggressively or hurtfully, but in the way that they want to know why I want to hang out with their 12-year-old kid. And it makes sense. It absolutely does. Especially when I don't meet the parents first, you meet the kids first, you meet them in a group, you text them to see what to say, hey, what's up, let's go get pizza. And then their parents may very well call you and say, who are you? And that's very common, happens a lot. And handling that without taking the defensive side is key. So that's what I mean by you have to be more careful. And on that same token, when you're hanging out with kids, if you're asking them, hey, let's go get pizza, let's go get ice cream, planning something, it's always great to throw in, hey, ask your parents if you can do this. Because high school kids, it's like, they get it, they'll ask their parents, or they'll just do it and they won't get in trouble. Middle school, they don't think about it. They don't think about a lot of things actually, but reminding them that they have to go through the steps of getting permission, do you need a ride, I'll pick you up at this time. You have to sort of feed contact work to them. And that's for kids you know and kids who are just meeting. It works the same way. Let me pause and say first, if any of you at any time have any questions, please interrupt me. I don't want to talk to you the whole time. Jokes here. You have to interrupt me. And most of the stuff is things that we found works also at Radnor WyldLife. And I know at other clubs in the area and the region, things work different. So if something out here that works for us doesn't work for you guys, that's great. Let me know. And we can talk about it and see why. But this is generally what works for us, and we're trying to stay general over top and the specifics towards the bottom of the sheet. So when I say organize hangouts with parents, this is essentially using parents as to meet kids as well. There's a couple of parents in our area who are really key and they're really great and they care for us leaders really well. And I will text their child, their son, and the mom or dad and say, I want to hang out with your kid today. We are planning to go get pizza. Can you ask his friends? Are they around? Are they available? Do you want to help drive? Because parents, in 6th grade, parents play such a key role in their kids' social lives. And thinking back, my mom and dad were absolutely the social driver in my 6th grade life, because I wasn't all about that anyway. So, in 6th grade, you go to the parents and you ask, how can we be friends with their kids? And in 8th grade, it changes quite a bit. I would even say the difference between hanging out with 6th graders and hanging out with 8th graders is bigger than the difference between freshmen and seniors in high school. Not that I've got a ton of experience in that. But it's huge. They go through so many changes in that time, including getting a cell phone of their own, which is another reason why talking to parents and emailing parents for contact work purposes is also really important. I have a list on my phone, and it's hidden deeply so that kids can't find it if they steal my phone, of kids that I meet and what they look like and where I met them, and just what their names are, even if I don't know their last names. Because if there's a group of them walking around in town, I know one of them will say, hey Chris, what's up? Or just using Chris as an example. And the rest of the horde coming towards me and be like, oh, it's you! You're the guy from that thing at WyldLife. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And then the next thing they say is, what's my name? Do you know my name? And if you can go around and say, hey, you're so-and-so, and you know everybody's name, they're like, you see them, they're taken aback. They're like, oh my gosh, he remembered. And they won't say a thing about it to their friends, and they won't mention it ever again. But it meant a lot to them. So if you can remember every kid's name that you meet in town, even if you meet them once, even if you don't know their name, say, hey, kid with hat, I met him with so-and-so at wherever. That helps a lot. And we've been trying to do that in the area with all contact work and all kids that we meet. But in middle school specifically, one of the first things you'll hear after their mouths is, what's my name? So, super important. Also, when there's a horde of them walking around, and I say horde because that's what they do when they're together. They sort of clump up, and it's like a crowd mentality. It's kind of scary. And that's with boys and girls, like I've seen it both ways. If they're about to go run and jump up on the snow pile and throw snowballs at cars, it's okay to say either, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm an adult and if you get in trouble for those sort of things, or you can just say, guys, that's an awful idea, don't do it. Being an adult is important. The line is a little more blurred in high school when you're closer to their age, and there's a different level of respect going on. But middle school kids tend to have a different view of respect, or a different level of respect for their leaders. Because, one, they don't fully understand the balance of respect and friendship, and two, we're so much older than all of them. 4 years really makes a difference. So it's totally okay to be an adult. It's totally okay to be strict. And at camp, there's times where you want to just let your kids do whatever you want. Mike knows exactly what I'm talking about. And there's absolutely times where you have to say, no, you can't do that, and accept that they're going to hate you for the next 5 minutes. And that's all. That's it. It's short-lived. Their attention spans are no longer. But it's very important because they don't know the balance between friendship and respect. And being a role model and adult is, I think, more important for them to gain that respect for you and learn how to listen to you than being their friend. Because honestly, they don't respect their friends. And I see this with girls and guys alike, all grades. They have less of a respect for each other as the years go on. They call each other names, the girls say things behind each other's backs. And I know this happens in high school, but it's just middle school kids have no filter. So it all comes out and you see it a lot. So differentiating and separating yourself is absolutely crucial. Let's see. I said suggest ideas because they don't do it themselves. Athletic events and volunteer after school stuff. This is stuff that we do at Radnor because we're not we're allowed to go to the school. We know the principal, we know the vice principal, and 2 of the 4 major administration are Christians. It's great. It's been such a blessing. But we're not really allowed to be in the school anytime between the bells. And after the bells, we still get looks and glances, and the teachers are a lot more questioning about why are you here? Because you're this tall and they're this tall, and it's a lot easier to spot you, and there's a lot more security in middle schools than there is in high schools, and all that jazz. Not to mention, when the bell rings at 3 o'clock, everybody is on the buses and off the school premises by 3:07. So there's not much time for exchange. But what we do is go to games and go to after school clubs, because teachers are always looking for help, and if you volunteer, you sign a waiver and say, I'm not a criminal. I think they do a minor background check. It's really easy for you to get involved as a volunteer, right? And being in the school, after school, meeting kids has been super beneficial. One of our leaders, Christine, does something called Pen Pal Club now, and kids are coming to club because they met Christine there, and it's really awesome. And sports events, going to basketball games, football games, wrestling matches. Not for the kids, because the kids don't know you're there, they don't ever see you. You'll say, hey, good game, and they're like, oh, you're there. And I've had that so many times. I sit with the parents going to the games because I can cheer for their kids, and they look at you and like, how do you know my son? And then you start a relationship because we're all personal people, and it's great. But knowing the parents is just as much a big part of the ministry as knowing the kids. So we do that all the time. We go to sports games. That's contact work in a nutshell. That's the major ways how it differs from contact work in high school. Let me ask you guys, anyone who's in a club right now, is there anything else about contact work that's important, that differs, that you guys do well that I haven't mentioned? Okay, well.
We still, this varies, I'm sure, by school, but many kids from middle school go to football games, high school football games. As a matter of fact, there might be more middle school kids than some football games than there are high school kids. So that's a great place. And it's very similar to what you do or hear about concept work in high school. Except that they're not watching the game, they're usually like playing football off the side of themselves. Like some field is too small. You can just stand there and throw a ball around.
Yeah, that's totally true for us as well. High school football games. They want to be high schoolers. They really do. Thank you. Absolutely.
How do you go about, or how do you, like club startup or campaign startup? Like what was like one of your first few years?
That's a good question. When I came in, it was club was small. It was there. It was small. We had a couple of supporting families already. We had a couple of supporting families that were coming in with their kids to 6th grade that were ready to jump in, which was super helpful. But going from a club of, my first club, there were 6 kids. One guy. It wasn't too fun for me. But going from that to like the consistency that we have have now, and the parents of what we have now, and having pseudo-campaigners. It was a slow process at first, but I would say the most important thing that we did early on was meet parents and talk to parents about what this vision looks like. Even more so than putting any pressure on campaigners, even more so than making the club so awesome that everybody wants to be there. I mean, that's important. But what helped us grow more was talking to parents. And I'll get to that. Comes a little later. Anything else about that? Cool. We're going to move on to the club. If you have anything, we'll go back. It's totally fine. Clubs are different. I've heard a couple different methods and structures for WyldLife Club. Some people sing, some people don't. Some people do more like WyldLife, and some people do something so different that it doesn't even look like WyldLife. We're somewhere in between, I think. And I will say club is probably the point of all this that will vary the most from club to club, depending on what kind of kid you have, depending on what kind of area you have. Club will vary. But some of the general things, for middle schoolers, it's always going to be high energy, it's always going to be fast paced. There shouldn't be downtime, there shouldn't be, hangout time is fine, hanging out at the beginning and the end, but when you're going from one game to another, or skipping to the talk, downtime is discouraged because they will totally lose it. They will go from sort of paying attention to absolutely another event, and they do it so quick too. So transitions are key in everything you do, and I think that's pretty consistent no matter what your club looks like. We don't sing just because generally the kids we've had have been insecure to begin with, and singing is something that none of them would do or feel comfortable doing. For us, we don't think it would work. We tried it only once and didn't go great. If you sing at your club, that's great. Power to you. That's hard to do and totally awesome. And I think there's value to it. But that is a totally different debate. What we do, just so you know, we have 5 games, or generally 5 games, a mix of upfront and mixer games. So everybody's involved at some points, and then everybody's sitting down watching people at other points. And I have another handout for anybody who needs ideas for WyldLife games. Just come see me afterwards. I've got a ton. And it's just a list of all the games that have worked well for us over the past 4 years. Games are the hardest to come up with when you're doing more than one every month. You get kind of burnt out. So, any of you that have great game ideas, I'd love to hear from you too. So we're trying to plan our next one. Something that we found that works awesome that I want to suggest is if you have a TV or projector or some way you can play a video, to have the lights go out and all the attention be focused on the screen before the talk is a great way to go from chaos, everybody running around, music playing, games going on, even if they're upfront games, everybody's crazy. Going from that to calmly listening to someone talk for 8 minutes, that is an abrupt change that a lot of these kids can't handle. The video that we do is generally 2-3 minutes. It's people doing parkour, or the What Does the Fox Say video, or something funny or cool. There's people are awesome videos. There's all sorts of things you can do just to sit them down and not even shut them up, just focus their attention forward. So that's worked incredibly for us. And the talk, now this is, we could give a whole seminar on how to give a WyldLife Club talk, and I'm not going to. They're watered down, they're concrete topics, don't go into crazy theologies or really anything that's not concrete part of this is the gospel. It's not because they can't comprehend it, but in a big setting, you'll lose a lot of people. If you want to do that in a small group or in campaigners, that's great, and I suggest you do. In club talks, keep it simple, keep it short. The attention span for middle schoolers, there's all sorts of numbers out there, but they say it's less than 5 minutes. And honestly, less than 5 minutes is hard to give any messaging, so we try to keep our talks 8 minutes or less. And even that seems long sometimes. So that's our rule of thumb. Doesn't always work, but general rule of thumb. And then someone else, another wildlife seminar I went to said, always have something in your hands. I don't remember who this was. You remember this. Always have something in your hands when you're giving a talk. If you're talking about sin, have the chair next to you the whole time, or whatever visual aid you're using, or whatever video you're showing, have something in your hands so that they remember, they associate what you're talking about with that image or that object. Just some practices. Anything else about club? What do you guys do at club? Like,
And the half the thing is, it doesn't even need to be an illustration that we're using. Like when we talk about Jesus feeding 5,000, it's a little breath. You know, when we talk about living water, I mean, it's just something tangible and concrete for them to focus on.
absolutely. There was a time where they had white plywood in their basement. So I took chalk and wrote on the wall. I made just a big graph. It was super simple. Just put a smiley face. It was about the needs on it. Happiness. Every kid remembers, hey, remember that time you drew on the wall? And it's still there. Like, it's still up there on the wall. Stuff like that is, they remember that more than what you even talk about. All the time. What else do you guys do in the club? What else works?
Because I just have a question
I'm
about.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm wondering, like, for the video, could you also do a skit, or would that kind of like also not? Can you imagine that working? Or?
I can't imagine that working. We have. It's funny. The reason why we don't do skits is because our personalities are not. We're not a good programmer, and we know that. And program for middle schoolers is also a little quirky to write because I don't remember what I thought was funny about it. It would work absolutely to focus their attention. Video is for us what works. The other thing is when the lights go out, it's like a chain. It's just different. But that makes it over time.
We'll do, I don't know if you remember this when you were in middle school, man, it was in our WyldLife. We do like a mixer game and a minutes game, games all the way. We actually have some of the kids act out, like we do that a lot, you know, like charades and have the kids act out stuff, right? We'll have to get silly like that, and we'll do that. So that's really fun for us. But games are big, games are really important for us, for sure.
Yeah. So then I went out with the games. James saw this when he came to visit our club. When we do games, we run through the games early on before kids get there and say, you're introducing this game, you're introducing this game, I'm introducing this one. The stuff I need is over here. We just make sure everything's set up so that transitions are real short. And when we have a basement or a big room, I'll do a game up here, and then the next game will be Lindsay talking about it at the back of the room, so that no one sees me cleaning up the eggs on the floor. They all have to turn around and listen to Lindsay. And then the video will be on that wall, and the talk will be up where the video is. So moving around the room, for whatever reason, works for us for games. So something to consider. Anything else before I move on to campaigners?
We always do club in the gym, just so it's very different feel to it than a club that you grew up in high school. But we found that if kids can run for a full 40 minutes, then they'll be a little bit more tired. When they start with stuff. We used to do it in house into the swim work. So we ended up in gyms, actually church, fellowship halls sometimes. We kind of change stuff.
Yeah. And how does that work when they come down with the talk? Is it?
You know, we just pull everybody together on one side of the gym.
And they're tired by that point.
What's that?
They're tired by that point.
Well, I mean, I am. And so I think they are, but that's how it worked for us. That I was concerned about the feel of this big room, and it seems so fun to listen. Sometimes they have to listen. Usually they're there to listen. And then another thing that we do in our club is in the end, we break up into small groups. You said this?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You don't have to. So we break up into small groups and have like a little cabin time about the talk. So every time you have a talk, the person who prepares the talk gives 3 questions. And you just listen. And sometimes the conversation is pointless. I mean, it's about our times, you know, I had a kid once that he'd never come to anything before, his first WyldLife talk, he said he's not going to send me a hell of a lot of shit. We had an unbelievable conversation that kid. And the other 6 kids in my group that week got to be part of it.
And there's no challenge about it too.
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that, but that's an awesome, I've heard you talk about it before, and heard good things about it, so. If you wanna try that, go ahead, I think it sounds awesome. Let me move on to campaigners. Campaigners is the seed in your life that is most different than WyldLife. For 2 reasons. One, you can't sit down and have an hour-long lesson or half-hour-long lesson with middle school kids. You can. Rarely does it work. In fact, this is my 5th year leading WyldLife. I can count on one hand the number of kids who I've been confident that they understand the gospel enough for me to have a campaigner lesson with them, or for them to be an actual campaigner. And those 5 are a stretch. It's rare that you will see a middle schooler with any sort of vision that a freshman in high school or sophomore in high school could have, just because it's the years of difference. Not to say that they won't understand the gospel or they can't understand it. It's been harder for us to build our club off of our campaigners rather than building it off our parents and just friend groups. So we don't have campaigners necessarily. We don't call it campaigners. The girls do. The guys call it man time because it's just a better name. And what we do for man time is generally just 8th graders and some of the mature 7th graders, because the 6th graders don't want to come. And if they were to come, they'd be running around the room and getting up and down. So we make it an older thing so that 6th graders can look forward to being in 8th grade to go to man time. It's for anybody who wants to come. But right at the beginning we say, hey look, you're not going to use your phones for this time. You're here to listen, and I won't be offended if you leave right now because you don't want to listen and participate. If you want to be on your phones, go upstairs. And we set that tone, and it works. Because when you have a smaller group of girls, when you have 4 or 5 girls or a smaller group of guys, you can have a conversation with them rather than talking at a room of 35. And for us last year, that meant I had to have 3 man time groups. I had to meet 3 different times a month with different groups of guys because I didn't want 15 guys in one room. And I'm glad I did that because 15 guys in one room would have been unmanageable, and it wouldn't have gotten done what man time had done. What we have man time do is that's where kids who are interested in the gospel come to hear the Lord. It's not, I can't wait for the next club talk to hear how the story ends. It's come to man time. Not that the club talks can't share the whole gospel, because they can. But we can go so much deeper at man time for kids who are Christians, kids who get it, and kids who aren't. So that's what we do, and the girls do the same thing. They call it campaigners, only because they don't have a better name. Our campaigners, who I would say are solid campaigners are our parents. Not mine, but the parents of a couple key kids. I'd say we have 5 or 6 solid families that are mom and dad both awesome families. And they are our campaigners because they will host a club at their house. They will invite all of their kids' friends. And as your kid goes from 5th grade to 8th grade, their friend groups change 3 times or 10 times. But the parents invite all of those kids, even the ones that their son isn't hanging out with that week. They all get invited. So depending on what house we have now, we'll see totally different groups of kids. And that is truly the work of God through these families. That all these different kids are getting exposed to this idea of WyldLife. They're getting exposed to the gospel just because their son hung out with him 2 years ago. So our parents are our campaigners, and our parents, we have parents that pray with us, we have parents that pray for us, we have parents that are volunteered to be at club with us, and we said, are you sure about that? We haven't had to have a parent leader because we've had enough college leaders lately. But parents, let me say this, you need a couple solid parents to have a vision for wildlife at your club. And without that, like Joe was saying, it's a struggle. It really is. So if you're just looking at starting with wildlife, start praying for families with middle schoolers. Because parents are crucial in starting with wildlife. Yeah, how about I say anything about? Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about what it's like to be a parent?
I was also going to say this.
Generally what I do is, the kids who I know well enough to have their cell phone numbers, the guys, that means the kids who have come to the club more than once or twice. Because the first couple of times they might come, they're in and out, you see them like a flash. If I have their number, it constitutes a text to them, inviting them to man time. And saying it in a big group and saying, hey, we're gonna have man time, may not be the best way to do it. If you invite them individually, they have to personally decide whether they want to go have a Bible study, and it gives them more of an option to come out easy. The other thing, when we set the ground rules at the beginning of every man time, I'm so strict about it that anybody who wants to fool around, they don't come back. And not to say they don't come back to club, they do. But if they don't want to be there, they realize that they don't have to come. They're not missing out on the fun by not coming. So just intentionally asking people to come and setting ground rules, I think, are two different things.
And you've had multiple man time groups based around some social groups, right?
That's true. Yeah, I've planned a couple when we had to split up into multiple man time groups instead of having a big group. We planned. I talked to, when you know who hangs out with who, you invite this group to one, this group to the other. When they say, hey, I can't do one, you can switch. No one ever got upset if they weren't invited to the other one because all their friends were there and all these friends were here. Social groups are so important to them.
Yeah, I would say actually that just from my perspective, what Chris is doing, what we're doing in WyldLife Club, is we're really trying to formulate ways to do discipleship, and then to start to begin to plant the seed of what it means for them to have mission among their friends, to actually care for their friends, love them well, and invite them to the club, things like that. But really, we're just starting with the basics of going deeper, and so I know Chris has often just kind of worked that around the friend groups he sees and some of the opportunities he has with maybe one or two kids, and then that becomes a startup under some of their friends. So, I was going to say that the other thing, and Chris can speak more on this, but the other thing that we've experimented with is obviously parents function as campaigners, but also some of our high schoolers that are known by some of the middle schoolers who are in our clubs or our campaigners in the high school. They don't function as leaders, but they come in and they function as what you want a campaigner to function as a club, if that makes sense. So we don't have high school leaders in our area, but we do have high schoolers who are really good campaigners at club for us. Or at least that's our intention. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But we try to get mature campaigners to say, if you could come help us out for a season of club, and just be kind of there as a kind of an older role model to the kids that come to the club, and kind of set the pace and the tone for club. Then all the transitions, all the things that you work so hard to make sure they work between games and all that stuff work better because you have a high school kid who's there, really excited to see their middle school friends and focused on what's going on, and it really helps the trajectory of the club, and then also has helped with the transition, which maybe you're getting to this, I don't know if you are, but
I'll talk about that.
yeah, the transition from middle school to high school, which we've worked on, tried different things in the past. I don't know if I'm
Yeah, Yeah, we have a couple, last year we had a couple guys coming, campaigners from high school come to the club. And this year, now that those 8th grade guys that were looking up to these high school role models they're freshmen now. There's an awesome connection between these older campaigners and these new freshman club kids. And it is something that a year of club could not have built. And it's just exposure to the friendship longer. It's been really sweet. It's really cool. And also, I've seen those 2 campaigners specifically. They have grown more in their walk with Christ since they started helping us out, since they came to camp with us, than the rest of their years in high school. Experiencing what ministry is like and loving other kids has helped them tremendously. So,
Help them actually see, just to fill in more detail, it's helped them see, like, for them it's a very easy way to go, oh, they're younger than me, and they're middle schoolers, so I'll lead them, like I'll come in and I'll be part of this, and I'll be like the older brother to these middle schoolers, and care for them well, and it's not about me. So then they're like, oh wait, I can do that in my own club too. It actually has been a helpful thing for some of our campaigners that I think struggle with that within their own club, to look at younger kids in high school and care for them. To do it for a middle schooler where there's a larger difference, and then they sit back into some of the things they're doing in the high school club, and it really emerges them. Let me just pause for a minute and say this. This is what we've realized about WyldLife, is that what your role will be is to plant a lot of seeds and to love kids well. And maybe not see the fruit of it until they're in high school, and then obviously maybe not even until way beyond that. And that's actually okay, that's great. Like Chris now, having been in the area for 5 years, has a couple, classes of kids that are now in the high school that he's worked with, who now he's like finally really excited to see the fruit of what he's gotten through just by loving them well. And they probably don't remember, I'm not saying this in a bad way, they probably don't remember a word Chris said. They just know that Chris has loved them well and walked alongside them through middle school, and now they're in high school, and some of the things are starting to click for them. And it's exciting to see the fruit of it. And even for, we have a ton of 8th graders who they're freshmen at Radnor. For fall weekend, Chris got to go because he already has earned a right with a lot of these kids to just be in their lives. And even for like the kids who are juniors now at Radnor, he knows them too. Like he's just been there. And contact work doesn't get isolated with just middle school. And so Chris, even though he's not a high school leader, is essentially like the 3rd guy on that team who's just, he's around, he's there, and he came on fall weekend and was a huge help and great to have here as well because, he's influenced these guys from when they were young, and now for some of them it's really starting to play, which is exciting to see. And so yeah, the fruit or the work, the faithfulness of what you guys have to do is truly a not by sight, but by faith. We may not see the results of this until later on, but it's all worth it. It's all worth it, and it's been exciting to see. Some of the things that, just to add with me, some of the things we do specifically are different from high school club because we want it to feel like a rite of passage to go to high school club. So yeah, the dynamic of what we do for our high school campaigners is much more traditional campaigners of we're focused on reaching our friends and we're in mission together. And I feel like when these freshmen have entered into that, it's been exciting to then hear the seeds that were planted in the man time, that they come together and now they're part of the whole group, freshmen through seniors, campaigner group that's saying, let's be in this together and reach our friends.
Chris, you go back and earlier about parents, and that's kind of like ringing in my head.
Yeah.
I think it's what we see with us, sometimes I think I need to face-to-face more so phone or Dr. Kiddo. Do you think it would be like this that we need for parents to come and share the vision of WyldLife, or maybe just kind of, I don't know, just think of the different ways where actually face-to-face, meeting parents.
Yeah, and this goes to every area is different. There's a huge testimony in that. I would say we've had meetings for parents that haven't gone so well because parents are busy. But if you don't end up meeting parents, I think that's absolutely important to get. To try to organize a meeting would be very beneficial. Yeah.
And Chris has done that, even though Chris has tried to do that regularly, at least once a semester, like once in the fall and spring, regardless of whether he feels like, man, I don't get much response. Every time a few new parents will be there, so it just gives an opportunity, even though it feels like it's maybe a small opportunity at times, to have that open. Parents can come hear about what's going on.
It's like a little mini banquet where you do like
We raise money too.
One of the things we need to help with that is every kid who shows up for their first time and fill a card, except their name and phone number and their parents' phone number and email address. So at the very least, we're connecting with them. That's we've got the address for it's at least a start.
the way we communicate is through email. Kid shows up, never been up before, don't know where he came from, who told him to come. You say, hey, kid, what's your phone number so I can fix you about next up? What's your parents' email? I have it up here somewhere. Have a list of your parents' emails, keep it up to date and current. And every time you have club, send out email to parents. They'll put it on their calendars, they'll put it on their kids' calendars if kids don't have calendars.
And I can't emphasize enough now that I'm a parent, realizing that it takes a lot of planning. Like, it really does. Parents have their calendars planned in advance. Even for Olivia, like, she's got a bunch of events constantly happening. We hardly keep up with them. But like, for example, this past Friday, which didn't happen as well as ice and snow and everything, there was like a Valentine's Day dance happening. And, I think Marion was trying to figure out ways to hang out with some of our WyldLife girls. Like, it's madness for the schedule of parents trying to figure out their kids' schedules and their kids, all that stuff. So the more in advance you can plan things and then stick to that plan, do that, and then plan well. Because if there is a Friday night football game, those kids are not showing up to your club. You're going to that football game because that's where everybody is. And you should be there too. So, shame on you if you do it. Or, so I'm just saying, like, there's lots of things that you need to say to a parent, hey, help me know your kid's schedule so that we don't plan club at the wrong times. We want to make sure we're doing it at the right times. And parents love that. They'll help you out with it. They'll create a matrix for you of their kids' lives, and then you will have like one Friday. I'm just kidding. But then you'll get to work with them and figure it out.
Yeah, scheduling has been fun. As your club grows and you keep asking parents, you realize not everybody's going to be happy. We also do club every other week, where we try. Because every week is a lot for parents and middle schoolers. If you do every week and it seems to be working, awesome. Again, they're all different. Let me touch on camp real quick, and then we'll get some questions in the chat. Camp for Young Life and Camp for WyldLife are supposed to look different. Program teams are there to make it different, and they do a great job they do a good job at differentiating. This is WyldLife Camp, and Young Life Camp is so different. So when your camp program will help you out with that. As far as the length, it's a shorter week, it's 5 days, and it feels like it's a month. It is a marathon, so take it easy. But with the 5 days, if you have a lot of kids, get into each of them. You don't have as much time. You don't have 7 days to talk to each of them one-on-one. So what we ended up doing, which has been really awesome at camp, just a suggestion. Towards the beginning of the week, kids that are Christian, kids that are coming to man time, talk to them early on, before the entire gospel has been laid out, because they've heard it already. They will hear it again, it'll be a great reminder and a refresher to them. But talk to them early on, and then towards the middle to the end of the week, you can have longer times and longer conversations with kids who are first time at camp, don't know the gospel, not Christian families. Not prioritizing kids, but prioritizing your timelines, I think, a valuable lesson. And then the last thing about camp, and this is you don't see all that many kids come to Christ in camp and change their life around entirely. You see that they were doing drugs and now they are inviting their friends to club. You don't see that as much. You plant a lot of seeds and you don't see a lot of fruit, and it can get very frustrating, but it's really hard. And I'm going to be really just blunt about it because it is frustrating at times and disheartening at times to see that you are putting all this effort and seem to be getting none back. My message to you is stay tuned, so you will see fruit, and have faith that what you're doing is eternal, what you're doing is for the future. Maybe it has nothing to do with what you're going to see. Maybe you'll never see that kid come to Christ. Or maybe you will. Maybe it's because you started a relationship with him early on. Camp for me has been awesome and discouraging at the same time. And it's not for me. Camp isn't for me. So that's okay. Camp is for those kids. And exposing them to the gospel is, I think, has been our goal. Exposing them and teaching them well about the gospel and loving them well has been our goal, more than trying to get them to accept the gospel now. Because it's almost too rushed and it's almost too forceful. But having the mindset of exposure to the gospel and loving well has done wonders for our team. That's camp. Let's talk about.
Can I just say this, by the way? I'm just going to keep adding these little things. I love that Chris said that because, by the way, if any of you leave high school and you're trying to force people to accept Christ, I'm just saying, like, the way Chris said that was awesome because it's very obvious in middle school that we really sometimes can't, manipulate situations, but we can't erase it. So, I mean, just saying that that's all we do is we love people well and we expose them to the gospel.
Any tips about camp? Anything you guys see?
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
Like, okay, so like moving from place to place, like I feel like we have a lot of kids that are kind of like hard to if it's like just you, or like, I mean, like how do you like it's hard to be like an authority figure almost, because like you want to be their friend, but like how do you sort of like if they're like running around, like I feel like younger like sixth grade, like they're like how do you like say no, like come back, like without being like too strict.
Be too strict. Mike likes that. Be strict.
Yeah, like I tell the kids in the first night, like just like kind of make them aware, like, hey, I'm gonna try to catch up with you guys one-on-one, like throughout this week. I just try to make that like clear, like I want to have a conversation with you guys individually. And then it's not weird when I'm like, hey, can I talk to you? Because like middle school, like they would just be what, it's a little weird to have them, so they're expecting it, And with Bruni, like they're almost looking forward to that time. Some of them are just really looking forward to that time. They can share with you, So like, when we do catch up with them a little later, they expect. I'm like, hey, Joe, I want to talk to you for a minute. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. Now it's my time with you. So that's one thing that helps me. Just tell them right in the first couple of days, like, hey guys, at some point this week I'm gonna try to catch up with you one-on-one and talk.
Yeah, that works well for us as well. Great idea. As far as authority at camp, you can be strict. It's absolutely fine, because they won't dislike you more because you told them. It's like a cool dad. You know how you have those your friends that had cool dads. They would still yell at you, but they would also let you have fun with you. So that's sort of the idea. And the head leaders at camp really are set up well to be the stricter authority figures. If you need something, you need kids yelling at you, that's what they want.
I was also going to say that the other thing that along the club, we've had a couple of those campaigners who have been involved in club come with us to camp as leaders. And we've also had, we've tried as much as possible to have at least one male and female leader from our high school ministry come with us to camp as well. So the more, the better in terms of our strategy. We have a lot, like, we get 40 kids to come to camp. So with that, we have to have, a bunch of leaders there to be able to both, process gospel kids and just even be helping lead kids well. So that's been helpful for us. It helps to have
chat about questions or end early if you want to head
Yeah,
out.
let's open up to questions.
Yes. Let me just say, these two lists, things that work and things that don't work, the for us is crucial because, again, all our clubs are different. You can take a look at those lists now, later, ask me questions. And then the bottom, I have 4 points that are just things that we talked about that I think if you're discouraged, go back to those things. Those are 4 huge points that I didn't spend a lot of time on top of that are really important. Mine and Joe's emails are down at the bottom. If you forget questions or have any later in the week or year or years to come, please email us. But yeah, any questions or anything that works great for you guys that I haven't talked about?
It's kind of like a different approach to parenting. Maybe this is just my experience with my girls. I found it easier for them to listen to what I was saying when I was just as high energy as they were and running around and acting crazy. Because it was more like, oh, she's doing this too. Like, and so then if I was like, wait, come back. They would like listen to me because I was running with them. But at the same time, if you have a big group of girls and there's one of you like want to be the caboose, but you also want to be the leader at the same time, you're shooting out from them, so it gets hard. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that was just my experience, like keeping the high energy and like trying to be as much on the same page as them. Sometimes that helps perspective of them.
Totally. That is important. And I think when you're doing that, when you have to say, come back or don't do that, they do listen. You're totally right. Alright, well, if you want that list of game tips, game ideas, I have it up here. Come see me. There's 20, 30 of them on there. Otherwise, so we got a couple minutes until we got 5 minutes early. I'll be here. I'll bring it out. Thanks, guys.
So,